A very good morning and welcome to this lovely Thursday morning. It is the 12th of May, a very special day across East Africa. 12th of June. Yeah. Oh, thank you for that. A very special day across at least 3 nations in East Africa: Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania. It is budget day today. The headlines would talk about something different, but we should be talking about the budget estimates as we expect Treasury CS John Mbadi to be presenting the estimates before the National Assembly today.
His very first budget for Parliament.
Ndio tujue kama anaweza kazi.
4.266, basically 4.3 trillion is what you're working with.
Yes.
It says the point today is World Day Against Child Labor. Lakini ni kama we would be paying attention to that today. Today, everything is about budget, and we have a very, very packed show today. Leo, the studio will be full. Yeah. This is Morning Cafe, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Anne Odida. Karibuni sana.
My name is Freddie Ndimule. The thing is, it is budget day, but if you look at the headlines, we're talking about something totally different. Killer squad boss, this is a question on the front page of the Standard. Now, this story simply refuses to go away. Ideally, we would be talking about the 4.2 trillion shilling budget. Right, that's a Standard.
Daily Nation, Lagat under siege. Same story.
Yes, they found space up there for the budget, but who's thinking about it? Mbona hajajiuzulu? Ndio kwanza swali pale kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa gazeti hili la Taifa Leo. Eliud Lagat, naibu wa mkuu wa polisi.
The Star, Ojwang tortured into coma in Karura.
Even more revelations following that appearance by the police bosses before the Senate yesterday. Okay, so those dailies, at least those 4 dailies are talking about this story. Some have tried to talk about something different, and yeah, the People Daily, now they go to the budget. 4.2 trillion shilling budget for salaries, zero development. So John Mbadi's very first budget, hakuna kazi, ni kulipa tu salo.
Salo, tunakupandisha zingine za, okay.
As a People Daily. Yes, and a Business Daily, of course.
Mbadi walks tightrope as Gen Z riots shape budget.
So at least 2 out of 6 papers are talking about the budget. Meaning Kenyans don't really care about what you're going to talk about.
Yes.
Yeah. Probably tomorrow.
Anasema distractions is what tutaki.
Sio sisi. To help us discuss this and a lot more, we'll be having these 3 gentlemen in studio. Mwalimu Wilson Sosion, Ngujiri Wambugu is a former MP Nyeri Town, and Dr. Peter Mbai, the Secretary Planning and Economic Affairs of the DCP. Jana walikuja na nje wakasema hii hapa ni mwisho, enough is enough. We as cousins and others tumesema enough is enough. All right. So this is what people are talking about in Kenya. Let's cross over into Uganda.
Daily Monitor, traffic fines run into speed bump. Hawa pia wanasoma budget yao leo.
Lakini wako na better things to talk about.
Yes. Wanasema mmetupatia fine ya barabara, lakini hapana. Slow down. Now, the Ministry of Works and Transport last evening slowed down the express penalty scheme following outcries by motorists and the general public against the system they likened to a bullet train hijacked by highway robberies. Now, this story has been covered on pages 2, 3, 4, and 5
Ile machungu walikuwa
of the Daily Monitor.
Walikuwa na machungu sana.
Yani, anasema citizen goes to court over EPS, transporters to go on strike, inside the EPS daylight robbery, and tickets are being determined manually. Even though important thing kwa Daily Monitor. Lakini they're saying other stories here. I'm trying to look if they have budget here.
Ndio ya budget kwa kona pale.
Kadogo.
They found space.
On the top strip of the Daily Monitor. All eyes, ears on Kasaije's 72 trillion shillings budget. That is Ugandan shilling.
Yeah, Ugandan money.
If we translate it into Kenyan money,
it comes to a few billion Kenya shillings.
Maybe billion?
No, their budget I don't think has hit 1 trillion Kenyan shillings yet.
Wow.
It should be probably a few 100 billion Kenyan shillings worth, which is 72 trillion.
So Sisi, we are living beyond our means.
Well, clearly.
We are over ambitious.
Seti tuko na pesa, but tunatumia.
Well, they say other stories here. Odeke to take on Among for Bukedia seat. Ule alita Mseveni God.
Huyu speaker Among.
Uganda's exit from EU greatly unlocks opportunities for growth, and kule chini kabisa, they say the future ahead as Postbank becomes Pearl Bank. Uganda inajulikana the Pearl of Africa.
Oh yes, indeed. Yes. The same story about that express fines. Ilileta shida sana, but government imesema sawa. Government suspends express fines. That's why they don't even need to stay talking about the budget. They had bigger problems. This one was actually a major problem. Yeah. General Otafire disowns Russian farm traffic project. So it was a Russian firm that had come up with this. They still find space for the budget, pale juu. Government imposes national ID number for all transactions. That's just like a highlight there, small, nothing much about, and I don't know if it's the trend. Yeah. But budget day kitambo ilikuanga, it is a big day. Kwanza kila mali unaweka ile jamaa amebeba ile. Maybe we'll see that tomorrow.
The briefcase.
Kama kawaida, on the front page of the New Vision lazima tukuwe na picha ya rais akisalamia mtu. Leo anasalamia nani? Cautioning cultural leaders on politics. Soko pale anamshosho fulani na atmuite ajuza fulani. But picha ya Rais Museveni lazima ikuwe pale, amevaa shati ya white, mask ya white na kofia ya white. Ndio gazeti iweze kuuzika New Vision. Isipokuwa hiyo sio gazeti. Tuvuke boda tuwe Tanzania tusikize kama wanaongelea masuala ya budget.
Gazeti la Mwananchi. A lot is happening today hapa Mwananchi. Ama ni kama kawaida. Nasema Chadema njia panda, matters politics. Waanza utekelezaji bila kujua mawanda ya amri yenyewe, huku wadau wakiona ugumu katika utekelezaji. Msajili aelekeza njia ya kupita. Amri ya mahakama. Nasema okay, hiyo ni ofisi of course la Chadema. Chadema could likely not participate in this year's election. Wakikaa vibaya wataambiwa you're out of time. But hopefully court may pronounce itself on the same and lift that injunction, allowing them to continue with their political activities. Yes. Matakwa ya Watanzania bajeti mpya. Here it is.
Pale chini.
Anasema macho na masikio ya Watanzania yapo jijini Dodoma na Zanzibar ambako bajeti za serikali zitasomwa leo. Hata hivyo, wakati Daktari Mwigu Nchemba na Daktari Saada Mkuya wakisoma bajeti hizo, Watanzania wameweka matarajio kwenye maeneo kadhaa ambayo wanaamini yakipewa kipaumbele yatajibu kiu yao. Sasa wanasema kipaumbele hizo kama vile miundombinu, wakisema pale Watanzania wanataka miradi yote ya ujenzi wa miundombinu hasa barabara na madaraja ikamilike kwa wakati ili kupunguza makali ya gharama za maisha. Nyingine ni uhaba wa ajira. This one cuts across. I don't know if Uganda also has this problem, but Kenya and Tanzania.
Uganda are more concerned about the traffic fines. Right now, they don't really care about anything else.
Uhaba wa ajira si kazi kwa. Wanasema changamoto ya ajira kwa vijana na wasomi nchini imezidi kutikisa. Matarajio ni mikakati ya ujenzi wa vyuo vya kati na mafunzo ya amali kuongezeka. Kipengele nyingine ni kwamba ukusanyaji wa kodi, wananchi Zanzibar wanataka wigo wa kodi upanuliwe na swala la misamaha ya kodi isiwahusu wafanyabiashara wakubwa pekee, wadogo pia waangaliwe.
Zile tax incentives zinapewa tu only big businesses, which is, it happens even in America. Msijali nyinyi na America.
Same was up. Hapa na hapa. Ukusanyaji kodi. But this year's budget, we don't have any tax increases in Kenya.
Are you sure? Let's wait for the finance bill. After the estimates that are going to be presented, and then the appropriations bill comes, then immediately after that we have the finance bill. How are you going to find that budget? Hapo sasa ndio utasikia input.
Well, simulizi janga la ajali mbaya mlima Luambi, habari nyingine ambayo imepewa kipaumbele katika gazeti hili. Na kule juu, Sheikh Ponda fichua siri kuingia miguu miwili ACT, bado masuala ya siasa. Gazeti la Mwananchi.
Na ukweli wa mambo kule Tanzania ni kwamba hata wakisoma budget masuala ya siasa ndio makubwa zaidi sababu ya uchaguzi unakuja. Still in Tanzania, urgently wanted, this is a citizen. Jobs for youth, lower cost of living, they've gone straight to the budget at least. Expectations are high that the government's 2025-2026 budget, which will be presented in Dodoma today by Finance Minister Mwigulu Nchemba, will outline comprehensive measures to stimulate job creation and address the spiraling cost of essential services. So at least our wameenda straight kwa budget. Hata wataki mambo mengi. 57 trillion shillings, that's the government's budget for the next financial year. Yeah. according to the 2025-26 budget framework unveiled earlier in the year. So Uganda 72 trillion, Tanzania 57 trillion, Kenya 4.2 trillion, but believe you me, ours is like 10 times what these people are talking about. Yes. Revealed tourism fisheries potential in creating jobs, that's something else. And hopes high ahead of Zanzibar's 2025-2026 budget presentation. You know, now they do double. Zanzibar has its own independent administration, so they have their own budget.
Yeah.
And then Tanzania does a bigger budget for the whole federation. Pale juu, ile airline ya Tanzania, ila wanakuanga na shida mingi. TCAA plays down EU ban on airlines based in Tanzania. Kwa pale juu kwenye ukurasa wa 4 wa gazeti hili. So these are the regional dailies. Of course, a lot of focus on the budgets across all 3 major East African nations, Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda. This will be the biggest conversation today. Of course, we'll be back to take a look at the biggest conversation in Kenya currently, but as the day progresses, believe you me, everything will be about the budget-making process today. Tuone sasa hali ya anga, hata tukiangazia bajeti. Na ni kama kwa ukanda wa Afrika Mashariki wanaelewa kwamba bajeti haitaki mambo mengi na haitaki mvua. So Kenya, Tanzania na Uganda, okay, hakuna mvua hata pale Lake Victoria. There's no cloud cover at all. In fact, most of the cloud cover is either in Ethiopia or DRC, Central African Republic, a bit in South Sudan, and on the northern border with Uganda. Most of the cloud cover is still domiciled in the western part of the continent. So turudi nyumbani tuangalie kuna kana namna gani. Tuanze na Homa Bay. Nakumbuka huko Homa Bay will continue hitting the news headlines because of what happened. Albert Ojwang, unfortunately, the young person who lost his life, was arrested in Homa Bay. It promises to be a cloudy day, 20 degrees Celsius, highs of 28 degrees. And as far as precipitation is concerned, nothing. So no rainfall there. To the coast.
Ukunda, 25 degrees, feels like 27, partly cloudy. It's raining in Ukunda as we speak. Precipitation here, 3.3 millimeters. The rain likely to end at around 6. Okay, saa sita mchana.
Saa sita mchana. To the northern part of the country, Marsabit, 19 degrees Celsius, cloudy day. High chances of rainfall. Here it's about 2.0 millimeters, but as far as temperatures are concerned, it won't go beyond 27 degrees. Right deep in the Rift Valley.
Nakuru, 14 degrees, feels like it, mostly cloudy, highs of 25. Precipitation in Nakuru. Wanasema kutanyesha kidogo at around mid-morning, 0.5 millimeters.
Very negligible. Hiyo watu wanasema hata isikuje, lakini Nakuru they need that. Ile vumbi inaweza tokea kwa hiyo town. Wanahitaji mvua hata kama ni kidogo namna gani. Let's come back to Nairobi, to the city in the sun, where a lot of focus will be today, especially in Parliament, as CS for Treasury presents his budget estimates officially to Parliament. 16 degrees Celsius. Promises to be a very cloudy day. High chances of rainfall here. 1.2 millimeters of rain. And as far as temperatures are concerned, fair, 24 degrees, so not so hot, not so cold. So that's it. Hali ya anga. Now, kumbuka that being budget day, after a while, a number of roads around, especially around precincts of Parliament, will have to be closed.
Treasury pia.
Na Treasury pia, ndio jamaa ashike ile nini hino ile briefcase. Hata inakuanga na kitu ndani kweli. Ni picha tu. But yes, I can still see people are busy trying to get into town. Something here at Garden City Mall. Lakini kama imepotea. Thika Road not so bad. Hata pale Pangani interchange for now it's actually looking good. Ile shida nimeona ni Kangundo Road. You can see up around Mojawan Markets, red on both sides of the road, and it's stretching, meaning it's getting busier. Watu wanaenda both sides, wakienda Kayole na wengine wakienda upande wa Outer Ring Road. Talking about Outer Ring Road, further down, there's a very busy area pale Pipeline, na Fedha, Tasia, but beyond that nothing much. Eastern Bypass is looking good all the way to the Mombasa Road. Huku anahitaji huku, yes. Jogoo Road getting busy, kama kawaida pale Makadara, Lakini after that it's smooth all the way into town. Nothing, hata ukiona Machakos bus station hakuna kitu. Hata pale Haile Selassie Avenue ni kama watu wanataka kaa nyumbani wa watch budget. Nashangaa. Budget anyway, it's very important to follow the budget.
Yeah.
Most of the other tributaries into town are green, so nothing much to talk about. And this is the budget traffic today, not so bad.
All right, let's take a look at the quote of the day.
When you're truly passionate about your work, it no longer feels like a chore. It transforms into something that motivates and pushes you towards excellence and persistence.
All right, it may be budget day and we should be focusing a lot on who gets what from the 4.2 trillion shilling budget by CS for Treasury, John Badi, but instead on most of the front pages, this is what we're talking about. And the Standard, once again, a black background on the front page, meaning that it's not very good news, it's deathly news. Killer squad boss, they ask, talking about extrajudicial killings. Is Deputy Inspector General Eliud Lagat the man pulling the strings behind a shadowy police hit squad? That's a question. With influencer Albert Ojwang dead in police custody and 2 more bodies found mutilated in Elgeyo Marakwet. Outrage is boiling over. From parliament to protest lines, calls are mounting for Lagat to resign and face justice. Apparently he hasn't. As the DIG's grip tightens, a nation demands to know, is Kenya's second-in-command officer the real godfather of extrajudicial terror? Hey! Na ameka picha yake pale kwenye ukurasa wa mbele. Some of the elders have said you need 3 days, and I have agreed with that. You say tomorrow is on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we are watching you. I'm hoping we will get those involved Thursday. It will not be business as usual, we will not agree. This is a DIG. Eliud Lagat speaking on May 25th in Tot Elgeyo Marakwet after the murder of Father Alois Bet. I'm just reading straight from the front page of the Standard. And on May 30th, 5 days later, 2 men were abducted in Tot. Their mutilated bodies were later found in Mogotio. Police IG, this week he said there was a complaint that had been launched by the DIG KPS about his name being tarnished. It is on that basis that investigations were carried out because he also has a right to be protected by the same law. That's Douglas Kanja. Ojwang was arrested in Homa Bay on Saturday and driven to Nairobi only to be reported dead on Sunday. That's the main story. Tuangalie tu kama kuna other headlines on the same. Killer Cops is actually a special report. Lagat, irony of officer entrusted with reforms now cited in probe. Fake news headline, GSU visit to Standard, then Ojwang's murder. Opposition leaders want Lagat arrested over teacher's killing. Lagat credibility question as he demands justice. Raila allies renew threats to desert Ruto because of this. Activists asked court to allow them to sue Lagat. Senators question Interior CS Kanja and Amin over cover-up bid. Murkomen on the hot seat over teacher's death. It's only after that that we start talking about the budget. On page 8 of the Standard, Mbadi's balancing acts amid mounting debt, revenue shortfalls, and struggling Kenyans. And yes, at least they've given 2, 3, 4 pages on the budget, but most of the stories there about the death of social media influencer Albert Ojwang. The back page of the Standard matters sports. Harambee Stars fans demand tougher friendlies after Chad win. McCarthy picked up his first victory in 4 matches. Yes, ilikuwa 2-1 against Chad. Congratulations to the Stars. And that's the Standard today.
All right. Daily Nation, Lagat under siege. Cover-up, senators shocked by revelation that CCTV footage at Central Police Station has been tampered with. Interior Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen and security chiefs spent 7 hours at the Senate being quizzed over the murder of Albert Ojwang while in police custody. As the storm raged, Deputy Inspector General of Police Eliud Lagat, whose complaint triggered the arrest of the slain teacher, faced the wrath of senators, opposition leaders, and civil society activists who demanded he steps aside to allow for probe. Murder most foul. Albert Ojwang, a teacher and blogger, was arrested from his rural home in Homa Bay last Saturday and driven to Nairobi, almost 400 kilometers away. The father of one was locked up at Central Police Station on Saturday night and was dead hours later. Police initially alleged suicide, but an autopsy showed he was tortured to death. All right, now leaders have been quoted here from Senate yesterday. Homa Bay Senator Moses Kajwang, of course, they say Lagat under siege. Just to quote, you cannot be in office still having authority, yet you're the person being investigated. Kenyans want to see him stepping aside and going to the police station to record a statement. Former AG Justin Muturi, we are calling not just for the resignation, but their arrest and arraignment in court of Lagat within 24 hours from issuance of this statement. Murang'a Senator John Yutu, why is Lagat still in office, or is he so important that if he steps aside, the entire police system will crumble? How special is he? Yutu is asking. IMLU Executive Director Grace Wangeshi, Mr. Lagat must, in the public interest, allow for an impartial and speedy investigation, which cannot be the case if the complainant is at the helm of the investigation. KHRC Executive Director Davis Malombe anasema it is the responsibility of the police spokesperson to confirm information before bringing it to the public domain. He, just like Lagat, must be summoned by IPOA. Youth leader, CI Senator Buru Odinga. I don't think the DIG was an innocent complainant in this matter. His role must be investigated. And finally, DCI boss Mohamed Amin anasema, I am urging this house that the mood in the country should not be used to victimize Lagat. Let us wait for the investigations to establish the circumstances under which Ojwang died. That is the DCI boss Mohamed Amin. Tuangalie ndani wanasema vipi. This story has been covered on pages 2 and 3. Pressure mounts on Lagat to step aside over slain teacher. Well, yesterday saw somewhere that Talam karibu arushiwe hiyo hiyo blame. Yes.
Ni kama hiyo ndio ilikuwa target. Yeah. DCI boss mwenye alisema he should be among the prime suspects.
Yes.
And he said that in the Senate. That's a very strong statement.
Yes. Ruto Raila first budget. Ruto Raila first budget.
And I like the way they tie it. Now Raila has to carry this burden.
Yes.
He has no choice. Kama budget inaenda Ukombo, Raila has no choice. It is a Ruto Raila budget.
Broad-based.
Yes. The very first broad-based budget. Yes.
Treasury Cabinet Secretary John Mbadi presents his maiden expenditure estimates for the broad-based government, pages 6 to 7. When Treasury Cabinet Secretary John Mbadi makes his way to Parliament this afternoon, he will be entering familiar territory after having worked there for 15 years this time round. However, Mr. Mbadi will not be a legislator, but a member of the executive ready to present the budget estimates and government revenue raising measures for the financial year 2025-2026.
And I remember when he was a minority leader, he was very vocal critic of all the budgets coming from any administration. Takipata leo.
Anasema here, sometimes the people just need to understand what a proposal means. They may oppose it just because they don't understand. Okay.
Unajua kishaanza offer excuses kabla upeane story.
Mbona una defend? Acha tuone kwanza.
Acha kutuambia tunajua, let us see first.
Yes. You remember last year when the budget, the former Treasury Cabinet Secretary akiwa hapo mbele ya Treasury, there was some guy who went there and tried to grab that. Well, all eyes pale mbele ya Treasury. Some of the winners in this year's budget, defense of budget of 201 billion shillings increased by 2 billion for recruitment officers, 5 billion operations in Somalia, 6 billion security operations, basic education 5.9 billion shillings, examination, administration and invigilation, UHC workers, 1.1 billion shillings, employment of staff, and 1 billion shillings, health workers, of course, under the better, that is bottom-up, better, okay, transformation agenda. Affordable housing, 1 billion shillings for Affordable Housing Board, 1.5 billion shillings for casual laborers.
And that's, you see, that's the irony of it.
Yeah.
Affordable housing should actually be something separate. It's not something we budget for here.
Yeah.
We pay for it separately. Yeah. That's why we're saying probably it should be a fund, not a levy. Because kama itakuwa inangojea kukuwa budgeted for, na tumeshalipia.
Yeah.
What are you telling us?
Ndio maana inafika 4.2 trillion. Meanwhile, Uganda wanawaka na 2.5 trillion Kenyan shillings. Tanzania wanawaka na 3.6. Sisi 4.2. Anywho. Public universities, 600 million shillings, infrastructure support to public university, electrification, 950 million shillings to power homes in 290 constituencies, and medical equipment, 500 million shillings to buy special health kits. On the back page of the Daily Nation, many changes at Sports Ministry, dragging down promising plans. Pending, much talked about constituency sports academies yet to be built. Review of 2013 Sports Act awaited.
All right.
That's the Daily Nation.
From the Daily Nation, we go to Taifa Leo, and this story simply refuses to go away. Mbona hajajiuzulu? Ndio swali kila mtu anauliza. Shinikizo zaidi kumtaka naibu inspector generali aondoke afisini ili wadogo wake wafanye uchunguzi huru. And you wonder, okay, what is a big deal? What is a big deal? You're just one man. Anyway, wacha nikuwe mpole. Juu siku hizi ukiwa mkali. Haujui. Inspector General Douglas Kanja alitangaza wazi kwamba naibu wake Eliud Lagat alikuwa mlalamishi kwenye kesi akimlaumu marehemu Albert Ojwang kwa kumchafulia jina. Jana maseneta kwa kauli moja walishangani kwa nini naibu Inspector General huyo angali afisini. Mashirika ya kijamii yakiwasilisha kesi mahakamani kumshtaki Lagat kuhusiana na mauaji ya mwalimu na bloga huyo. Upinzani nao ukatoa makataa ya saa 24 bwana Lagat ajiuzulu ili uchunguzi ufanyike kwa njia huru na ya haki. Mbona bwana Lagat ameganda mamlakani licha ya shinikizo hizi zote? Sio mimi nauliza, msinikasirikie, ni gazeti hili. Hata mimi ningekuwa na hiyo swali lakini sijauliza. Sio mimi nimeuliza, ni Taifa Leo. Lakini ninaelewa kwa nini wanafaa kuuliza. Lakini sio mimi nimeuliza. Msinikasirikie mimi. Ilivyo sasa, rafiki yangu Lagat, hamna Mkenya yoyote atakayemwamini kuwa hata kuhusika katika kifo cha Ojwang. Na wewe nani? Senate majority leader. Yes. Hata nkubali hata anauliza hiyo swali. Lakini mimi sijauliza. Msiseme nimeuliza.
Arion Cheriot.
Mimi msinekelea sijauliza swali mimi. Habari nyingine kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa gazeti hili, Rais Ruto akaidi amri ya mahakama na kuteua rasmi makamishna IEBC. Creating another problem because you defy a court order, then what happens? Anyone can go to court and challenge and say, okay, fine, yes, they've been appointed against a court order. Then more delays in IEBC. Hey, you know, a few years back, there was a song being sung in some Greek language. They were saying in Kenya Jiro. Senegal yafunza Uingereza soka. Ni habari za spoti kwenye kurasa wa 20 pale. Gazeti la Taifa Leo. Tusonge mbele, The Star.
The Star, ex-teacher driven back to Central Police unconscious. Ojwang tortured into coma in Karura. Fresh revelations. This story,
this is the only paper with such a revelation.
2, 4 and 5.
Yes.
Tuangalie ndani wanasema vipi. Now in here they come up with a very different angle altogether, and they say 49 killed by cops since January, and that is according to the civil society groups. I'm trying to look at the story about Karura, but it has been covered on pages 2, 3 and 4. Here it is. Albert Ojwang, the father of a young family, beloved high school teacher and outspoken social media influencer, was tortured inside Karura Forest before he was taken unconscious to Central Police Station, where he died, according to credible sources established by this newspaper. Contrary to the conflicting accounts by police of what transpired, a clear picture has emerged of a carefully planned secret operation involving powerful figures within the security establishment. Sources close to the ongoing investigation say between 9:35 p.m. and 1:39 a.m., the time of Ojwang's death, as recorded in the occurrence book, he was removed from his cell and taken to Karura Forest. Some station officers allegedly objected to taking a bleeding, unresponsive man into custody, but were overruled. An order came from above to book him. Ojwang tortured into coma in Karura. Other stories here on the Star: Chinese workers to leave as Kenya Railway takes over full SGR operations, and political blunders under extrajudicial killings threaten Ruto-Raila deal. On the top strip, opposition say Gachagua Kalonzo team demand Lagat resignation. That's the Star: fresh, independent and different.
If you're on a 60 bob, you can grab yourself a copy of this paper. At least here we talk about the budgets. 4.2 trillion shilling budget for salaries, yet zero for development. That's a big headline on the front page of the People Daily. And I like the way the Daily Nation has captured it. It is the first Raila Ruto budget, meaning Raila lazima abebe mzigo. Asijaribu kusema, oh, it's a Ruto budget. No, Only 704.35 billion shillings is allocated for development spending, a category that includes construction of roads, schools, water and health infrastructure. Hii yote, only about 20% ndio inaenda kwa development. Yes. Ruto-driven lavish harambes trigger national outcry. This is ile wanaita economic empowerment. Wanaenda wakiachilia pesa tu kila mahali. Inaitwa economic empowerment. Tami nasema tukutana nao mahali hata may want to be economically empowered. Opposition issues 24-hour ultimatum for Lagat arrest. That's the only mention on the front page of the People Daily about the story that everyone else is talking about. Yes. That's the People Daily. Matters budget, of course, making headlines on the Business Daily.
Finally, Body walks tightrope as Gen Z riots shape budget. Say National Treasury revenue targets from the finance bill for the year starting July have been cut by 91% of 314 billion shillings after the state opted not to impose significant new taxes or increase existing ones in the budget proposal. The Finance Bill 2025 is expected to yield 30 billion shillings in revenues, a far cry from the aggressive new revenue measures in 2024, when deadly protests broke out against the government's measures to raise revenue. Now, more than 50 people were killed when the youth-led marches broke out last June, forcing President William Ruto to abandon tax hikes worth 346 billion shillings. Did we learn, though? All eyes on the budget this year. Kenya set to push for new IMF deal in September. Another very interesting story. There are questions again. You know, IMF wanatuangalia if you're really spending this money vizuri ama we're just overspending.
Sisi.
Yes.
Umeona vile wamesema kuna economic empowerment. Pesa itatoka wapi economic empowerment kama utoi hapa?
Well, lakini tunapewa na KDF to get 13 billion shillings more in fresh estimates. Education dealt a blow on the ticker. Inside the Consolidated Bank management mess, and the Auditor General has flagged cash-strapped Consolidated Bank of Kenya for multiple management breaches, including faulty pricing of loans and reliance on an obsolete information system. Finally, MTN Uganda to list mobile money unit. That's the Business Daily.
Those are the big headlines. Let's take a look at what the cartoonists are talking about. But before that, just a reminder, this gentleman will be in studio after, actually they're in studio. Mwalimu Wilson Sosion, who has served as SG for KNUT and also as a member of the National Assembly, will be here, talk about issues around education. Tujue kama anafurahia kisikia maswala ya education inakosa pesa. Hata kama yeye ni wa broad-based. Ngojiri Wambugu, former MP Nyeri Town, will be in studio also. He's actually in studio alongside Dr. Peter Mbaye, Secretary Planning and Economic Affairs at DStv. Do stand by for that coming your way in a short while. Tuangalie karakacha wanazungumzia nini haraka haraka. Katuni ya kwanza hapa ni ya The Star. There's a green and yellow crocodile crying. Green and yellow, hizo sijui ni rangi gani na sahau. Lakini crocodile tears hapa. Justice for Ojwang. Lakini this crocodile in yellow and green is really crying. Yes.
This is Daily Nation. We are saddened and sorry.
Yeah, saddened and sorry, meaning they've been quite silent. And they're standing somewhere, mahali kuna casket nyingi. A caricature of the former Prime Minister and the Prime Cabinet Secretary. Wanasema they're sorry. Mwingine mwenye anasema amebari head in the sand. But they're saddened and sorry.
Yes.
Sio mimi nimesema ni cartoon Daily Nation.
Standard.
The standard, at least broad-based budget. The very first Ruto Raila budget.
Yeah.
Insist first Ruto Raila budget. Usikuje kutuambia tena ati huko hapo.
Hata mimi nashangaa, unaona penye ameshangaa.
Ameshangaa.
Is it bread? Is it bread in there?
It's a broad-based bread.
People Daily. Kenya enforced disappearances and extrajudicial killings must stop now. Meanwhile, extrajudicial killings question, it's time to give it a new name: suicide.
Yes, that's a police. On one hand, they are condemning extrajudicial killings. They've given it a new name on the other side. It's suicide. So these are just some of the big discussion points. Later on the show, of course, budget making and the estimates will be the big discussion. We'll be having this other guest in studio. George Monga, Finance and Accounts Insurance Analyst, alongside Professor Fred Ogola, a Governance and Economics expert. Do stand by for this. And this will be a long haul because budget coverage continues.
Okay. All right, don't go too far. Interact with us on our socials, TV47 Kenya on Facebook and on YouTube, on X, at TV47 News KE. My handle is at @Ann_Dida, and the hashtag is Morning Cafe. Karibu niseme the hashtag is Budget 2025. The hashtag is Morning Cafe.
I'm sure later on it will move to Budget 2025.
Budget 2025.
For now, it's Morning Cafe. My handle is at Fred Indimuli. See you after the break.
Our world is changing every day, and so should we, for the better. Each week, we tackle the big why, the question that should be on everyone's minds. Why isn't this fixed yet? Deforestation, global warming, and the adverse effects of climate change. The future isn't just something that we inherit, it's something that we create. Join us on The Green Fix as we tell the stories of those who refuse to give up. When it comes to fixing the planet, there is no time to waste. Join me, Shiksha Arora, on Thursdays at 9 p.m. on The Green Fix as we look into the big why, you and I.
For comprehensive information and education on your health, Body Garage is here.
Don't allow anyone to pluck out your good tooth as long as it is strong and stable.
Cancer doesn't start today and you get the symptoms tomorrow. By the time you pick it or the time it is manifesting in you, probably will be there about 5 to 10 years.
The eye is the window to the rest of the body.
Don't forget to stay hydrated.
And of course, you at home do take your water.
So the ultimate test is actually you check your urine. Your urine should be clear.
Clear like the water?
Yes. Should be able to see the other side of the urine. If your urine is colored or has changed color, you cannot see the other side, then you have not taken enough water.
Don't forget regular health checkups. Early detection saves lives.
I want the message be, we can prevent cervical cancer. We prevent cervical cancer in several ways. You have young girls and even somebody who's above that age, you can pay at least every 3 years. Somebody should have a pap smear done.
If you are 40, 45, 50, going upwards, once a year, please go see a doctor. Yeah, it's just for normal routine maintenance.
Hey there, friends. Welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Jiunge nasi tunapoangazia safari za viongozi bora. Kutoka kwa ushindi mkubwa hadi masomo magumu.
Wakati wetu kwamba wasichana si wa kusoma, ni wa kuolewa, ng'ombe ipatikane, wazazi wakuwe watajiri.
Tunashughulikia yote.
I wish I were a better investor.
My parents taught me how to look for things for myself.
Tazama Mfahamu Kiongozi, ambapo kila kipindi kimejaa maarifa, mikakati na hadithi za kukuza azma yako.
For me to succeed, I have to fight.
Kila Alhamisi saa 1:30.
Mr. Speaker, who ordered...
Following mounting public pressure and outcry, top security officials in the country spent the better part of their Wednesday before senators to provide answers on the brutal killing of Albert Ojwang while in police custody.
Let us hear from the National Police Service.
With the case involving the brutal killing of Albert Ojwang taking a new twist after the Independent Policing Oversight Authority revealed that the probe into the unexplained death of Albert Ojwang has hit a snag because of missing CCTV footage from the officer commanding stations.
The other thing that would have shown his condition clearly, Chair, is the CCTV, which in our report we have indicated was tampered with. And from the forensic report, the forensic experts that we have at the authority, it's very clear that the CCTV was working.
While appearing before the Senate on Wednesday, IPOA Vice Chair Anne Wanjiko noted that preliminary investigations into the murder showed that footage that would have aided in piecing together the events that occurred at the police station is missing, raising more questions into the murder.
Because the first thing the forensic expert and the investigating officer noted when they got into Central Police was that the power was not connected to the power cable of the CCTV was not connected to the socket. But on connecting it, the CCTV came back. But on trying to review the previous day's events, there was nothing. So it is very clear that the CCTV was tampered with.
The revelation of the interference with CCTV cameras at Central Police Station in the build-up to news of Ojwang's death inevitably led to outrage in the Senate, as senators called for more accountability.
Leo tusifiche, leo tuweke mambo paruwanja. Kwa mtoto yule amefariki.
What raises many questions is the number of CCTV cameras at the station in question. Upon visiting Central Police Station, right at the entrance of the station, there are more than 4 CCTV cameras, and at the front desk, there are 2 cameras. If the 7 are not enough, there are other 4 more cameras, both on the ground and first floor, including right in front of the OCS office. Following further investigations by the Directorate of Criminal Investigations and the Independent Policing Oversight Authority, top investigator Mohamed Amin now says Samson Talam, the officer commanding station at Central Police Station in Nairobi, should be the prime suspect in the ongoing probe in the murder of social media influencer Albert Ojwang.
Talam is the officer commanding Central Police Station. And from the totality of things, he should be treated as a prime suspect in the matter.
According to the DCI boss, investigations have established that OCS Talam declined to book Ojwang when he was presented at the station, raising serious questions over his conduct and possible culpability.
That he declined to book the suspect. Talam is the officer commanding Central Police Station.
Making a bold statement today during the Senate grilling, Amin further explained the circumstances that led to the transfer of Albert Ojwang from Homa Bay to Nairobi, following public concern over the move and the events surrounding his subsequent murder.
There are several variables that we consider. One is the logistics and the investigation convenience. If we say that we take him to a court in Homa Bay, and majority of the witnesses are in Nairobi, the forensic lab evidence is in Nairobi, the complainant is in Nairobi. So because of that, and because of the logistic reasons, that's why sometimes we find it more convenient to have the suspect charged here in Nairobi.
Tamira Mohammed for TV 47, Nairobi.
Yes, it is indeed budget day, but this story still simply refuses to go away. It is the biggest conversation this morning on all the front pages. Lagat under siege on the front page of the Daily Nation. Killer squad boss, they ask on the Standard. Ojwang tortured into coma in Karura. That's the Star. A lot of the stories we're covering here are about the same, so budgets we will make time for the budget process that we expect later today in Parliament. As I had introduced earlier, my panelists this morning, Wanjiru Wambugu, former MP Nyeri Town, is with us. Good morning, karibu sana.
Good morning.
Mwalimu Wilson Sosion also joins us this morning. Who has served as former SG KNUT and also as a former member of the National Assembly. Good morning, karibu sana. Good morning. And Dr. Peter Mbai, Secretary Planning Economic Affairs at the DCP. Good morning, karibu.
Good morning to you.
Just before we even embark on this, the main story that we have and across all pages is a question on whether or not DIG Eliud Lagat should still be in office. We have that story here at TV47 as well. Let's watch it.
Human rights activists Julia Ogogo, Khalef, Francis Auma and Peter Agoro have filed a petition seeking the court's order for private prosecution against the Deputy Inspector General of Police, Eliud Lagat, arguing that investigative and prosecutorial authorities have failed to take appropriate action in expediting justice for slain blogger Albert Ojwang.
We want to call for the immediate stepping aside of Eliud Lagat, the Deputy Inspector General and head of the Kenya Police, who has been revealed to be the complainant in the matter that led to the arrest of Albert Ojwang.
We also call upon the Independent Policing Oversight Authority and the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights to lead the investigations and ensure that they extend beyond interdictions and suspensions.
The Deputy Inspector General Eliud Lagat, a person of interest in this case, must step aside immediately to allow for a thorough, impartial investigation into his role in Ojwang's arrest and death.
They allege that the agencies are whimsical in handling the matter by refusing to investigate the senior police officer who remains in office. The Inspector General of Police, Douglas Kanja, has confirmed his Deputy Lagat was a complainant in that case that was allegedly to face Ojwang during his arrest.
4 questions, and the first one was from the Leader of Majority.
Pressure continues to be mounted on the DIG to step aside during the Senate sessions that Interior Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen, Inspector General of Police Douglas Kanja, and DCI boss Mohamed Amin had been summoned by senators.
Why have you found it difficult to advise the necessary authorities that Eliud Lagat be dismissed from service?
I know that government opens offices at 8 in the morning. If they did a letter, for example, to the CAK at 8, and they got a response at maybe 8:15, if the government is so swift, then it means that they drove to Kisii in less than 3 hours.
Ili chochote kitakachofanyika pale ndani, atakayeingia na atakayetoka hataweza kuonekana katika ile kamera. Ni nani waliofanya kitendo kama hicho?
Was there a backup of what was in the CCTV? There must have been a backup somewhere. Can that backup be recovered?
A section of Kenyans had stormed the Vigilance House on Tuesday, demanding resignation and arrest of Lagat. The petition states that the circumstances circumventing the blogger's death, allegedly involving arrest, detention, torture and eventual death, are grave and must not be solely let for internal disciplinary processes. CS Murkomen and IG Kanja were, however, quick to defend IG Lagat over the matter.
It is head against the wall, but that is the report that we had from the word go. I tell my apology on behalf of the National Police Service because of that information.
That as a cabinet secretary, I have told the police officer in no uncertain terms that anybody who is going to be found to carry out such kind of extrajudicial killing will carry their burden.
Ordinary places of trial for an offense is determined where the crime was committed. Particular matter, Your Honorable Speaker, the offense we believe was committed in Nairobi, but the arrest was done in Homa Bay County, and that's why the deceased had to be driven all the way from Homa Bay to Nairobi.
Lagat had accompanied his boss during a press briefing at the Central Police Station. For TV47, I'm Linda Alela.
And the image of the DIG Kenya Police Service, Eliud Lagat, has been splashed on most of the front pages today. Many people are questioning why he should not simply step aside to give room for investigations. Let's start from there, Bwanangunjiru Wambugu, because for a matter of this magnitude that has attracted this level of public scrutiny, public attention, including the Houses of Parliament, it is rather obvious that the position that the police DIG occupies is a very senior position. We saw him standing right behind the police IG when they are issuing a presser regarding this. And many people are asking, isn't it simply common courtesy, at least to step aside and allow these investigations to continue? We're not saying he's guilty.
Thank you, Fred. I've actually been thinking about that very question and trying to figure out, because one of the things that we need to deal with at this moment in time is precedent. And what does it mean? I think the complication about DIG Lagat, why there is such a popular, such public pressure for him to resign, is the fact that he's assumed to have influence in the way the investigation is going to go, based on the fact that he is the second person in the police force, being DIG of the National Police Service. And that is what the argument for him to step aside comes from that basis.
An apology there. Yes. I think there's some issue to do with your audio that you're going to rectify. Okay. Are we okay now? Okay, please continue.
Okay, so what I was saying is the challenge for DIG Lagat is a perception, public perception. And I say that for this reason. I was just reading through the paper and I saw a situation where some lady was arrested in Kinangop based on a complaint by her boss, and then she had a miscarriage in the police cell, which is also another case that is just weird. But you see, in that particular case, nobody is trying to point fingers at the guy who made the complaint as being involved in what happened to her. In this case, the reason there's a lot of fingers being pointed to him is because he's a boss in the police force, and now the complainant in this particular case. And I think there is a lot of soul searching within the police force that needs to be done on this, not just for this case, but in any other circumstance where you find yourself as a complainant in a case that has gone south. What do you do in that particular case? Can you continue being in office, or are you able to say that you're going to ring fence yourself from that particular investigation? Is it possible for the public to believe that you are not going in any way to interfere in how that particular case is being
in other jurisdictions? That is what happens. Is it that it's a different standard for Kenyans, that we insist we cannot step aside even in a case such as this?
And I think that's the problem. I think in the our Kenyan philosophy is that we never step aside. We never step aside for two reasons. One, the public perception when you step aside is that you're guilty. We don't have a situation, the public doesn't accept that you can step aside while you're innocent. So the assumption is that if you step aside, you're guilty. And that's why people refuse to step aside, to avoid a situation where you're assumed to be guilty. But in most jurisdictions, whether you're a judge, in any situation where there's a direct connection between you and the case, you would step aside. So this is that. Then there's also a conflict, Fred, of right versus popular at this moment in time. Right now we are dealing with what is the most popular position for Lagat? Step aside. Is that the right way to go with this thing? And this is going to come from a situation of when I tried to imagine him. I read another story about Standard, some police officer showing up in Standard that day and wanting to know whether that fake story headline was from Standard. So you start wondering, boss, how much influence do you have as a DIG on this particular situation? And that's going to be quite something to investigate.
But let's take a look at it from even the point of the Senate. Yesterday they conducted what they would call an inquiry, a probe into it to some extent, and some of them, including the leader of majority in the Senate, called for the DIG to actually step aside, just to allow for the investigations to continue. Not to say that he is to blame or that he's guilty, but just to allow this investigation to continue. Don't you think that such a request from House of Parliament should hold some water, enough to have the DIG step aside?
I think from my experience of labor representation and considering the actual crime itself, we must be cautious as a country not to engage in mob justice and pursue a wrong but popular route that is not going to help the investigations. The main reason that DIG Lagat should step aside because he filed a complaint, I don't think meets the threshold of doing things right with this case. This is the simplest case in the world because the suspect was taken to Central Police Station. Lagat obviously is not based at Central Police Station. There is an OCS. There are officers manning the station. And I think Murkomen yesterday in Parliament brought out very clearly the standing orders of the police service, how to process a suspect before even admission to a police cell. Some of the information we are not aware. Those of us who are proposing and pushing, including the media that are pushing the headlines, you will be diverting the country from focusing on the right thing. Who killed Albert Ojwang?
And
that is what we want.
And we'll get to that point after the investigations. We'll get there. But the question is, so many people have been named so far. So many people have been named, Bwana Sosion.
When the country takes
Don't you think that the DIG is a person of interest in this situation? You do not think he is?
Until when there are facts that point towards that direction. As long as we don't have it at the moment, then he should not be touched. That's a fact. There is nothing that points towards him. He only filed a complaint, which is normal for anybody.
Right.
And he was not physically at Central Police Station, and let's prove that he was physically at Central Police Station. That is when he will be a person of interest. The thing is, someone even could have killed Ojwang to fix Lagat. It is possible. Right. Because the rate at which this death is taking a disturbing wrong dimension is very alarming. And we might end up losing the focus on who killed. Who is this officer who killed Ojwang?
Hold that thought.
Those
Step
who
was take a break.
And those who took out the life of Ojwang. Let us focus on those ones. They must be dealt with. And if at some point Lagat will be, there will be indicators that is involved, then he will have to step aside. But for now, he does not have to. This direction that we are taking is what I call mob justice and mob lynching.
And we'll be back to continue with that conversation because everyone is talking about it. You're watching Morning Cafe.
Our world is changing every day, and so should we, for the better. Each week, we tackle the big why, the question that should be on everyone's mind. Why isn't this fixed yet? Deforestation, global warming, and the adverse effects of climate change. The future isn't just something that we inherit, it's something that we create. Join us on The Green Fix as we tell the stories of those who refuse to give up. When it comes to fixing the planet, there is no time to waste. Join me, Shiksha Arora, on Thursdays at 9 p.m. on The Green Fix as we look into the big why, you and I.
For comprehensive information and education on your health, Body Garage is here.
Don't allow anyone to pluck out your good tooth as long as it is strong.
Still watching Morning Cafe on TV 47 with me, Fred Indimuli. I still have my panelists, Dr. Peter Mbai, Mwalimu Wilson Sosion, and Ngunjiri Wambugu in studio. We continue discussing the biggest debate this morning. And it's not about the investigation. Of course, police are continuing with that. The question is, should DIG of Police Eliud Lagat still be in office, or should he step aside to allow for the investigations to continue? Bwana Sosion says he should. And at this point, we should not even be questioning that position. But I know, Dr. Mbai, you hold a different position.
Thank you, Fred. Yesterday, the official lawyer opposition issued a statement, and I'm here to reiterate the position that the DIG ought to have stepped aside or being asked to step aside by now. So there are two issues. We are appealing to his conscience, and if the conscience is not enough, there is one person where the buck stops, the CEO of this country. He should have asked him to step aside if we care for a life of Albert Ojwang.
The president issued a statement yesterday.
I mean, and that's
it did not come close to anything like that.
And that's what I'm saying. This is what should happen. And I will go to this point. The party leader of DCP is on record. The other day, he said there is a squad of 101 members who have been mandated to do abductions. And he said it reports to the DIG. Now, I like what Kanja did. I mean, when blood is poured, I think people begin talking. IG came out from day one, and he said it is a DIG who is a complainant. So connect the two. If it was a normal thing, those police, that guy would have been, Albert would have been held in Homa Bay or somewhere, right? Connect the fact that there is a squad here, according to the deputy. And by the way, the DCP leader did a letter to police. We have never had any investigations or any, sometimes you should, you go back and say there's nothing like this. It was never said. Now, if the complainant is a DIG and he is the head of some squad, what the president should come and tell us is that I have asked the DIG to step aside and I have disbanded this squad. At least people will begin thinking there is some hope. But for now, I can tell you this. We are all hoping that this thing will come and end 2 days. That is what people in government think. Fred, ask me, I know. They're like, okay, 2-3 days, something else will come up. Today, everybody will be focused on budget. Albert goes. Did you see, Fred, that young man lying on a table? Did you see the pictures? I spent my whole day the day before yesterday at the morgue. Just for solidarity with that guy. Because today it is Albert. Tomorrow it is me. It is my sister. It's my brother. It is my cousin. It's my friend. So the moment we keep quiet because it's not me, tomorrow it is you. And this thing you can see, it doesn't respect community, where you come from. It doesn't respect region. It doesn't respect whether you're in broad-based or otherwise. It is catching everyone. So any life lost, Fred, we cannot come here and begin talking it so casually. It against God. God hates injustice. Mm-hmm. You cannot be the... God gives life to all of us, Fred. Me, you, the president, and anybody else. Then you decide yourself, you are the one to take people's lives. Now, how? Let me ask you, Fred. Yesterday I watched people talking, right? Fred, people who are very close to the president, people who have the powers in this country, complaining the way somebody would complain in Kibera. Complaining how somebody would complain in Subukia or Molo. Let me ask you, if you want to do something, don't go complaining in Senate. I was shocked. Simply drive to State House and say, just one call. Come here, please resign. Simple. Don't come, please, especially anybody who is close to should not come and complain to us. What are you saying? But let me say this very quickly. And I like that cartoon. You are the one who is supposed to do ABCD, but you are here saying investigations. It's very simple. Now, I didn't know about the headline in Star. People have been asking, these hours, between the time the guy was picked and the time he was put at Central, where was he? We are trying to get answers. It's not me. It's the Star that said he was in Karura. We don't know. Secondly, the conspiracy. Look at the disconnection of the CCTV. But I want to say two things. Why is government intentionally radicalizing the youth against itself? That's the first question. Why? Because let's go to the point here. Number two, the question is, OCSs and OCPDs, the other lesson quickly is this, Fred. They should be careful not to take what I call unlawful instructions. You saw OCS beginning talking. Because everybody can see. It's only that we are waiting for them to do something, but everybody can see. Why people watch TV the whole day yesterday, you can put dots. Not everybody may have gone to forensic studies, but you can see. The OCS is saying, well, me, I don't know. But ABCD, but then he'll be asked who disconnected the CCTV. So we are saying, please, officers, stop taking unlawful instructions. And I'm saying again here, it's not me saying. The official statement by the official opposition is that DIG Lagat, peacefully and quietly, should just step aside, and then, because all fingers are pointed at him. But let me say this. I feel sorry for IPOA. Friend, this is very important for me. I feel sorry. 3 months ago, when the new chairman was appointed, it's here in the clip. He said, we are helpless. We depend on police to investigate. Because they don't have investigative powers. They depend on the same police. Ask me. I know. There are some cases, many cases. Some young man in a village called Solai, he was killed by police allegedly, very, very, very clearly. Then I told my people, let's bury. They said, we're not going to bury. I told them, let's bury. We'll push with the airport 3 years down the line. Even calling, even saying, this is what we did. The chairman said, we have no money. We depend on police to investigate them. If it has changed, let us know. You can see already the vice chair saying we got a load blow because we are depending on the cooperation of the police, and their senior is the one who is being accused. I'm appealing to the conscience. I'm appealing now to the conscience. I'm appealing to something called justice. Kindly, not unless we do it politically and the person with the highest responsibility is held into account, there's going to be a problem. Let me ask you, Fred, if what is alleged, if I'm the person in leadership today, Fred, what I'm alleged I didn't do. Assuming I'm a person in authority, I'm told I went and bought a house somewhere, I'm corrupt. If I'm not corrupt, or rather, if I'm corrupt, I will know, wow, people know what I'm doing. If I'm not, do you know what I'll do, Fred? Let the young man be arraigned in court, right? Let the man be punished. Let teachers, let the TSC come and also punish him. That way, you'll send a signal that you cannot write whatever you want to write, but you cannot kill somebody because of that.
Mbugu, the only other time I think we can draw a parallel with this is quite a number of years back, about 34 years back, in 1991, when the death of Robert Oko, also shrouded in a lot of controversy, raised a lot of public interest. One of the very powerful cabinet ministers there was named publicly, and he was very close to the president. But yes, something happened. He had to step aside. Yes. He was taken behind bars. At least then, there was some pacifying of the masses, and people felt something is happening here. Don't you think that that was the best way to do? Eventually, he was never found guilty.
There's a word you've used, pacifying of the masses. Actually, just before we started the show, I had just mentioned that case to Mheshimiwa Susion and said that it's actually very similar to that. And you see what Moi did at that time. He realized the public, and you remember that was a very authoritarian system at that time. But he still realized that the public, it was both public international pressure, civil society pressure, public pressure. And he had Biwott step aside, he had Biwott arrested, and then a couple of months later, Biwott was back, right? And we actually never got to the bottom of that case. For me, I would want to see us not go that route. I want us to actually genuinely get to the bottom of what happened to Albert. And that is now where this conflict is coming. I read something this morning online where somebody was saying, the other danger we have, if we take shortcuts, we'll go that way. We'll get somebody picked to pacify the public. Then a couple of months later, the whole thing is going to collapse, and we'll actually never, and Albert's murder is going to be another one of those cases that actually never got to the end. So we have to make up our minds do we really want to get to the bottom of this? And to get to the bottom of this, we need to start from the bottom. Meaning, we need to go and sit and find the officers that actually arrested this guy. Who got him from Homa Bay, as Mheshimiwa Mbai has said, brought him, figure out those hours, what was happening. We need to do this systematically all the way to the end of it, and then actually get the people who got involved. Coordinate it all the way and find out, right now we feel Lagat must be involved, right? And we want blood, because unfortunately, that's where we are. Guys are like, a young man has been killed, and we want blood. We want somebody to pay for this now. Now, the history of this country tells us that every time we have done shortcuts with something like this, we pacify the masses, we pacify the public, the case goes, for example, let's assume Lagat steps aside. The masses will go down, the pressure will go down, and then what? People will lose focus of that case, right? If we can continue, if we knew for a fact we are going to sustain our focus and our pressure on this case, and stay on it until we actually get to the bottom of it. We're not, stop playing to the masses, stop playing to the media, stop playing to the public. And let me tell you, Mbai has raised an interesting position. Yes, Gachagua a couple of months ago talked about the possibility that there is a police hit squad. And this was the first time he said it. And I wish the very first time he said it, he actually gave every detail that he knew. Rather than just say, I always remember the very first statement was when there was during the time when young people were being abducted. And he gave a random statement about some people in a building, somewhere in town, and he didn't go into the details. Sometimes I ask myself, if we had all the information from day one, as far as he knew, would we have come this far? Would we have been able to hold specific people accountable from that day? Because we need to stop playing politics with matters of life and death of people. We need to be able to, if I said today Sosion is involved in abducting people, I then need to wake up from here and go to IPOA or to the Internal Affairs Bureau within the police force or to DCI or somewhere and actually put it properly in writing so that action can be taken. Because you see, part of the reason we are in this kind of confusion is because Lagat has been mentioned in the past. But his mentioning, nobody ever took action about it. It was just a political statement that was made. This guy is in charge of a killer squad of policemen. And then nothing happened after that. Then somebody goes and writes a bad story about him and dies. So people start connecting. Tuliambia huyu mtu, he's in charge of a police squad, a killer squad. Somebody has done something against him. He has complained. The guy has been killed. Then sometimes I'll ask myself, if you're in charge of a killer squad, do you actually need to make a complaint? Think about it, Fred, for a minute.
Okay.
If you're in charge of a killer squad within the police force, do you need to make a complaint? You will just send your people to go and pick the guy and go and kill him. So there's a lot of things that we need to sit and decide. Do we want to do the right thing and actually solve the murder of Albert? Or do we want to pacify the masses?
Let's look at it from the point of the houses of legislation and the kind of action we saw yesterday. There was a lot of outrage in that house, in the Senate, and it was across board. I've just told you what even the leader of majority said and suggested. But the consequentiality of such actions is what comes into question. Then what? The Senate was there, very angry. They brought these top police bosses, asked questions. Then what? Should we even look forward? Are you confident that something will happen from that?
I think for the first time, let's give it to the Senate. The Senate did something very unprecedented on this particular matter. To invite the IG of police, the DCI, the IPOA, the Police Service Commission, led by the Cabinet Secretary for Interior for the whole day, to interrogate. And that was within the presence of the committee of the House that is investigating the matter. And so the proceedings of yesterday will inform the report of that particular committee. And it was an open public plenary, and that helped the public to understand the case more and to listen to keen explanations from the respective officers. And when you see the IG even apologizing to Kenyans for the initial wrong information which originated from officers of the Central Police Station, is a good thing. I think for the first time, we are not politicizing and making statements over this issue. We are seeing some meaningful action of interaction and asking of questions. IPOA in Parliament committed to forward a file for prosecution to the ODPP in less than 10 days. That is very reassuring. The officers who arrested Ojwang from the DCI, I believe will also be able to record statements. And eventually, whether, if we are serious as a country and if we are serious as agencies, and I think we are serious, the president made a statement yesterday. That statement was not in vain. That the criminals must be brought to books. And the bad elements in the police force, the bad elements.
Before we even get to the president,
who took out the life of Ojwang must be brought to justice.
Before we even get to the president,
there are a number of things here. There are a number of
still
things
on the Senate.
There are a number of things at the Central Police Station. Who is this who put up the CCTV? Who is this?
And those questions, of course, will be
the wrong information to the public. That
I'm asking about the consequentiality of the parliamentary process we saw yesterday. It is good, and we've seen Parliament, both houses, come out from time to time to vent, simply vent about anything.
It is not in vain.
Now, I'm asking you as a former legislator to help Kenyans understand that what happens next for such a process to actually be consequential. What will happen?
In fact, Fred, the activities in Parliament has exerted optimum pressure on investigation, expediting action on this particular matter, because the criminals who killed Albert are officers at Central Police Station. That is what is pointing, because it is clear when he was presented at the Central Police Station, he was said he was okay. He even made a call to the family. That's an allegation. But then as to that, whether it is true, the officers who came with him will also have to record a statement. And so everything, in fact, a lot of things were filtered. And therefore, to me, if that process is allowed to work meticulously, and even with the pressure from the president making a statement, that was not a statement.
I don't think I'm getting the answer to what Ngunjiri, you've also been a legislator.
Yes.
For such a process in Parliament, beyond just venting and expressing outrage and anger and asking serious questions, beyond it just being an opportunity to inform the public better, what happens for such a process in Parliament to be consequential?
First and foremost, you need to get a report done. That report needs to have actionable recommendations. It needs to recommend. You see, after yesterday's process, I expect that the committee, the security, whichever committee deals with, I don't know which committee deals with security in Senate.
Security and governance.
Now that committee is going to do a report and say, we conducted this process, we listened to so-and-so, 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 so-and-so. This is what they told us. We analyzed what they told us, and this is our recommendation. We believe, for example, so-and-so should step aside. We believe so-and-so should be investigated. We need to know, for example, that issue of CCTV is just right there. It's a smoking gun in your face. You're like, so, and you see, I was just listening to the vice chair of IPOA say that they noticed it was just actually disconnected from power. Meaning somebody went and removed it from power for that period. Then all you need to do was put it back and it worked. So who did that? And that's within a police station. So it can only have happened, only have been done by a police officer. It can't have been done by some random person from the street. And it's important to know why that happened and why, so that investigation needs to be called. So if it's going to be consequential, and it's not just about pacifying the public, there has to be recommendations that are actionable. And then the committee must follow up, must give itself a time span and say that we are going to have the same people come back before us in a month or in a week or in a couple of days and tell us what they have done about these things. That's the only way to make consequential. That's the only way to be consequential, and that's the only way to make sense and not just be an opportunity to vent. But as I finish that, Fred, I'll go back to the complication, in my opinion, my personal opinion. The biggest complication of this case is a complaint. You see, what ties Lagat right now to this case is that he officially complained on record. I'm asking myself, when you're a senior police officer within the police force, and you make an official complaint on record, and then that complaint leads to the person who you've complained about getting killed, you don't just wrap yourself up. So something went wrong in that process. Now, at what point it went wrong, because there's the assumption we are all making, so they call a popular assumption, is that Lagat had this guy killed. But if you're going to have him killed, then why make an official complaint on record? Because we know, we have seen abductions happen in this country. They're not based on official complaints. Okay. Just a bunch of people who come in, pick you, go, and you disappear. So this is another smoking gun we have here in the situation. Okay. He actually went on record and complained. And then the guy he complained about ends up dead. So there's also something that we need to follow up.
I want us now to focus on the president's statement.
Yes.
Many people demanded that they wanted to hear the president say something. Did the president's statement give you any sense of confidence beyond the usual rhetoric that these people should be brought to book and justice should be served?
When I was growing up in the primary schools, I was a big champion of news. So I used to listen to news a lot, radio and all that. I began reading newspapers when I was in high school, like on a daily basis. And I used to see the word book everywhere since I was young. No stone will be, I don't like hearing those words. No stone will be left unturned. We brought somebody to book. Those are tired lines. The young people and us, we don't want to hear those stories. The president would have come and said two things. Out of the circumstances, we value life in this country. The Constitution guarantees life. Government is elected to guarantee life and security. Because of what has happened, I'm asking the DIG to step aside to allow for investigations, and I have disbanded that killer's code. That is what Kenyans wanted to hear. All other issues, I can tell you, Fred, we are waiting here, talking for 2 days, and I can tell you we are with you here. Next week, here, we'll be with you. The story of Albert will be number 5. I can tell you that's what is going to happen. Now, if that doesn't happen, what will happen is that we will see junior officers being arraigned in court. People who are just helpless and they were given instructions that you must do ABCD. Now, Albert Ojwang will join Richard Lemond Otieno, who was killed by people in Elbagon. The people who are in court today, I mean, I can't talk much because the matter is in court. They are there, but they are still saying, the officers are still saying, they are still looking for the mastermind. He will join other people. He will join Brian Odhiambo. He will join Daniel Deritu, who has been killed again by police in Nakuru. He will join other people. He will join Alex Masai. He will join all the heroes of the 20. Again, he will join them. I can tell you today, if we are not serious about arresting this thing, the blood will continue to spill in this country. But let me give you a minute. Yesterday, the vice chair of IPOA spoke those words in Senate. Our investigating officers are not safe, right? We need guns. That is the vice chair of IPOA. The body, all of us, you saw yesterday, IG said IPOA. Everybody said IPOA. IPOA came and said, we are not safe. We are not sure that we can deliver. Now, let me quickly read to you a statement by the chair of IPOA, Ahmed Isaac, on 19th of April, 2025. IPOA cannot arrest anyone. We depend on the police to arrest themselves. When you want to arraign an officer, you still need another officer to carry out the arrest. Unlike other public servants, police officers don't step aside when charged. They continue to work while still armed. Now, what has changed? That was April. This is June. This is the reality. Kenyans, sorry. I'm here purely as an expert on leadership and governance, which I love. You don't expect anything from this thing.
Okay.
Ojwang will join other people in the line. Let me tell you this. And unfortunately, the young people are on their own. Now, let me say this. Mheshimiwa Bugo, the second deputy president said what he needed to do. He released an official statement, Fred, which you read here, talking about the squad. I mean, he didn't need to do anything. But for record, DIG never made any official complaint. It is IG who told us it is DIG who complained to who. Where did he record? For record. There is nowhere DIG went to a police station and recorded a statement that I have been maligned or defamed by Albert Ojwang. Nowhere. That is something we have been looking for even today. Let him go. Let us show where he went as a person, right? He's a person, assuming he's a person, and of course he feels aggrieved. He never went. He sent, according to what is going on, he simply sent the team. Now, and of course, number 2, the issue of going to wherever, this morning I've heard about Karura and all that. That's what we are saying. Please, spare Kenyans all this drama. Fred, Kenyans are very wise. Kenyans can be able to put 1 and 2 together. Okay. Just let him step aside. At least people will feel a bit, because you cannot replace life.
Okay.
Martin, there's this German theologian, and it's very important, Fred. And he said, first they came for the communist. I did not speak out because I'm a communist. Then they came for the socialist. I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionist. They came for the Jews. Finally, they came for me. And there was no one to speak for me. I can tell you this. We can keep quiet here. We can feel safe because we have the privilege to sit here. We are in Nairobi here. 1% of us, 2% who are good, feeling good. Okay. I can tell you. This thing will not spare anyone.
Bwana Sosion, and you were quick to quote the president speaking yesterday, but over the past 3 or 4 weeks or so, you've had the president speak about these things, issues of abductions. And sorry to say, but in a very casual manner, probably answering a journalist, not an official statement, or saying that those things will not happen again. Now, yesterday comes out, no official statement. He just said they'll be brought to book. There has been no consequence of all these statements by the president over the past 1 month. Why should we believe what he said yesterday?
You know, Fred, the biggest weakness that we have as a country is that we want to make political capital out of grave matters that requires even...
He's our president, despite whichever party he's from. He's a president.
Allow me to speak. You've asked me a question. Allow me to speak. We want to make political capital and create politics out of a very serious matter. On this particular matter, the president spoke yesterday and said those who killed Ojwang, the errant police officers who committed crimes and actually are criminals by any standard, should be brought to book. And they are known. They were within Central Police Station. They are not strangers who are outside. The drama and the lies around the activities and reports from the Central Police Station. Don't think by the time the Inspector General of Police is tendering an apology to the public from the initial story, the very foolish story that Ojwang hit the wall with his own face and that's why he's died. Who gave that narrative? It is known. It's an officer. So, and who put off the CCTV? So that let's avoid other stories outside this.
We cannot ignore the president. We cannot ignore the president's statements, Bonasocion.
And Fred, I know we are talking politics on this one. And
that is not politics. He issued a statement about it.
To talk politics.
Okay.
Let's talk about.
Let me ask Bonapujiri.
No.
From a communications perspective, because that's a question I'm asking.
Yes.
The president has been issuing statements in what many people have said in a very casual manner.
Yes.
He said most of those who had been abducted have been taken back to their families. Then he said it will not happen again. He issued an apology. From what position, we are not so sure. Then yesterday comes, he's not issuing any official statement. He just says they shall be brought to book. Does that kind of communication give you any form of confidence from the president's position?
I think I would want to... I read the statement, the 3-page statement that came from the president on the issue of Albert. And the difference with this one, as to compare to all the ones you mentioned, was that this one actually had substance. As you said, the initial statements, the initial responses, were questions asked and then he'd respond. He did a 3-page statement about the issue of Albert, where he talked as a parent, talked as a commander-in-chief, and he made the commitments he made. And then he said that IPOA needed to, that all security agencies needed to cooperate with IPOA. There's a statement I wanted to correct. I was in the security committee in the last parliament, and IPOA actually has investigating officers who are people who leave the police force and go and start working for IPOA as investigators. Actually, that's what they're called. They're called investigating officers. They are paid by IPOA. They report to IPOA. I'm not sure they're armed, but they have an investigation capacity.
She said She said they are not armed.
No, they're not. I'm
Yesterday.
not. That's the part I'm not sure about. What I do know, they have that, but then I also know they're not enough because we used to keep fighting about budget for them. They don't have enough budget to actually be able to do all the cases that they're given. So yes, they end up depending on the police or the Internal Affairs Bureau to do investigations of some cases. Now, coming back to the communications avenue, the difference between the Albert case, and maybe this is because of the piling pressure that has been piling, unfortunately, due to past abductions and past killings and of this, is that this one, there's a lot more effort from especially even within government to try and reduce gaps, information gaps. It doesn't mean that they are finished. But then, for example, when I think about what Senate did yesterday, I am not sure this was a decision made entirely by Senate itself. I suspect this was a decision made by either pro-government senators, decided we need to create an avenue where we actually get to ventilate and to challenge and to ask the questions the public is asking to the police officers involved. So you see that happening. You see the president giving quite a long response to this issue. You see Kanja going and apologizing. And I agree with Osion, that was just the most stupid statement that had been issued before. The one that said that the guy had actually, that Albert had actually knocked his head on the wall and died. As the investigation is being conducted, one of the things that needs to be done is, I know the spokesman, the police spokesman is the one who signed off that statement. But I assume he signed off that statement based on a formal report he was given by some officer. The officer who gave that report is a person of interest in this case. We need to know who actually told you that Albert banged his head on the wall. Because also, that's where now the cover-up begins. Because whoever told you that he banged his head on the wall is where the beginning of the cover-up of this murder happened. Because I think the assumption was, you say that, and then that case will disappear. But then whoever thought that you can tell the Kenyan public that somebody who was picked from Homa Bay and brought to Nairobi, then got to Nairobi and banged his head on the wall and died while alone in a police cell, is crazy. So there's a lot of effort being put in to try and get this, to try and create opportunities to ventilate for the public. You know, you see a lot of pressure on the president, and the president responds with actually a substantive and well thought out response. A lot of pressure on the police, and Senate calls them in and they respond. So there's a communication structure that is trying to get ahead of the news and ahead of the media and ahead of the online conversations on this case that hasn't been there on other cases before. So there's some effort going on.
When Asuncion, you feel that there's a lot of politicization of this, but that is what politicians do. That any case, of course, those who are not in government will question even government responses to issues of public interest. Why do you feel that is wrong?
No, I think this is how it should be. Let us all condemn the killing as Kenyans and support a process that is going to help to bring the culprits to book. Because the intention to murder, the action to murder is domiciled in the murderer. It is not the entire police force that is executing this. Mm-hmm. It is not the government officers that are choreographing this. It is a murderer or murderers who are then trying to engage in cover-up activities. This is very serious, Fred. When somebody even gave information that came to the public of how Ojwang killed himself, that particular officer did not contemplate the effect of such a false statement. And that is an indicator of what we call covering up. You cannot work for government as a police officer and then you engage in covering up. And I'm very specific in concentrating on focusing on the killers. And I'm happy IPOA took statements of the officers who had been interdicted. And from those statements, Kenyan investigative systems will always get to the bottom of the truth. It doesn't matter how long it takes. But this is not something that is going to take very, very long. So as for me, I think as a country, let us separate politics from serious issues. We close ranks and focus on this, because we need to change the culture in the police system. Mm-hmm. If convicts, because many Kenyans will be arrested all over Kenya, suspects, and they must be safe within the hands of the police. And when Murkomen yesterday outlined the standing orders, the standing orders are so clear. Do we have a police officer who arrests a citizen without complying with the standing orders, of even how Kenyans are processed in the police stations? I have been to the police station many times to record statements in the course of my work previously. And I would imagine if I was mishandled, no Kenyan should be, in fact, a Kenyan under arrest should be very safe, should be the safest, mm-hmm. more than anybody else. And that is where we need...
As a guest of the state.
And yes, as a guest of the state. And that is where all of us need to focus.
Okay.
And that is the hallmark of the statement of the president, the statement of the cabinet secretary for interior. Let me not go into the statements of the police and whatnot. Why are we not enforcing the provision of the standing orders, police regulations, the laws of this country, the constitution of this country? You kill a citizen and then you want the entire country to be disrupted.
Okay.
And those who want to make political capital without shame and without moral, they want to make political capital out of it.
Allow me, I know, gentlemen, I know. We spent so much time on this story.
Empirically speaking,
and we may still
surely, Fred.
Empirically speaking,
surely two things.
The criminals
it would be unfair for me to.
It would be unfair for them to, without, it would be unfair for me not to have
let you leave this video without talking about the other big discussion, which is the budget.
Fred, allow me to say, because it's important. That is
60 seconds only.
60, thank you. One, very quickly. This story about us saying who did the statement about banging, the police spokesman is a spokesman. He speaks on behalf of the IG. Don't crucify Mushiri. The guy the officer was told what to write. That's number one. Number two, anytime we're talking about serious things, we talk about politicizing things. It's until it hits you. That's when you know we are talking about a matter of life and death. Now, the blood of Albert is crying, and God is watching us, and he's asking, where is my son Albert? And all of us are running helter-skelter, tend to run away. But I can tell you, the blood is crying. But finally, I want to say this. Please, I don't want to hear this story about somebody, that statement about Albert dying in a police station, being, dying inside the cell of police. Please, let's stop that. Kenyans are wiser. They can tell this guy was booked when he was almost dead. Let's stop these other stories of concentrating so much on what happened at Central Police Station. Let's concentrate on who picked and whether those who picked him fit the profile of the people who have been asked to abduct people in this country. So let's stop this issue of all going back to Central. We expect the little people to be gotten. Finally, I'll ask the CS more comment. This is a statement from a witness on the incident that happened in Nakuru, London, of Daniel Derito. Police walikuja na Hilton na double cabin. Wakashika kijana wakasema ako na bangi. Kijana alipojaribu kuresist alipigwa risasi kwa mgongo. Wakamfungua pingu. Wakapiga risasi juu. Akapigwa kifua na hapa chini. Said the resident, I'm asking again. Let us see whether IPOA will arrest this policeman. It's very simple. IPOA is crying for help and you are not getting. Then tunawaambia, you go and investigate this kid. Arrest the police officers who did this. God for us all.
Right. Gentlemen. This ideally should not have been the biggest discussion today. We should be talking about the budget process, which is also huge given the kind of upheaval we had last year around the same process. Yes? Today, for the first time, we're going to have the first broad-based budget. The Daily Nation calls it the Ruto-Raila first budget. Many questions have been asked about the ambitious amounts that we're talking about, 4.2 plus trillion Kenya shillings. What happens to education funding, which is a big concern, and how much we are spending on other issues. The Auditor General, for example, raised concern just the other day about how much we spent on the AU campaigns, amounting to over 40 billion shillings. The questions we're asking when it comes to education budgets are concerns about 6-7 billion shillings towards capitation money. Bwanangunjiru Wambugu, you've known John Badi from the other side as a strong critic of the government and questioning the budget-making process. Right now, he sounds and looks very confident. But by now, at least we have so many details. In fact, the Daily Nation talks about the winners and losers. Are you hopeful this time around that you are getting it right?
Fred, putting together a budget for government will never be a tidy process. And it's just ironical that Bandi is now the one who's trying to put this one together. I mean, Bandi's political career, I think for the entire period, and he's been in politics and in elected office and even been nominated for a long time, he's been primarily a critic of government expenditure, of government budget-making process. So it was a genius move, for lack of another word, to actually make him CS for Treasury. Because now he has to incorporate everything he has complained about and preempt it in his budget. Now, one of the advantages and one of the differences in this particular budget and the previous budgets is that when you look at how they've handled again, the communication around this one. First, we have a lot less, we have much less careless statements, especially from MPs and from the leadership. Last year, part of what made last year's finance bill so emotive was the kind of careless statements that were being made when something was raised. Remember, somebody would raise an issue, then somebody, an MP or somebody in government would retort to it and make a careless statement about why that issue was there. We've seen a major difference on that one. There's no careless statements coming from leadership, coming from the Treasury Department itself, coming from the CS himself. He has tried throughout this process to give hope and to give an assurance that we've got this, we've got this. He's been talking about no taxes. I'm not sure that it is possible to make a budget that has no increase or change in taxes. I suspect within a lot of the English that he's making, there is going to be an effect on taxes. He's talked about the issue about KRA trying to get access to personal information. And the argument is that no, we're not going after personal information for anything else. We are going after it to just reduce tax evasion. So he's trying to run ahead of the conversation on this one. Once he actually presents the budget, it will be interesting to see what he's actually presented. Because again, we'll always come back to the point that even within the media, we are focusing on specific issues. We are focusing on the capitation. We are focusing on the reduction in food, the school feeding program. We are focusing on specific issues that are either relevant or popular or have an effect on what we think is important. Once the whole budget is read, it is going to be interesting to see how the whole 4.2 trillion comes together. It is also going to be interesting to see where they're planning to get this money from. Because we don't raise to 4.2 trillion from our taxes. So there's going to be a lot of gaps that need to be sealed in terms of debt. I see him saying that the debt has come down to around 53% from 67%. It would be interesting to see how that has happened. I've always been a believer that if we could come up with proactive ways that actually make people want to pay taxes, rather than making it look like it's that the money is being forcefully taken away from you, if we could expand the tax base, then we could actually reduce the amount of money every individual pays. I would want to see whether Bandi has been able to come up with something like that, because the reason why taxes are always painful is because you have approximately 3 million people who pay taxes out of a workforce of close to 15. So we have a lot of people who don't pay taxes, and it would be important to see how do you start encouraging those people to start paying taxes so that you reduce what every individual pays. So interesting budget, interesting politician, going to parliament to actually talk to his peers and try to explain to them. I suspect Bandi being Bandi is pretty smart in what he does. He is going to try and answer the questions people are going to ask before they ask them, so that he reduces the pressure.
Are you saying that they're a bit better at managing expectations?
They have actually, not even trying to say, I'm actually saying it. They have done a much better job in managing expectations, and that is why today we don't have, and of course the unfortunate issue of the fact that we now have Albert's case as a major news story. So a lot of attention has moved away from the budget to this. And then also he has done quite a bit of work in trying, whether it's deliberate or by default, in managing the expectations of people around this budget.
Okay. Manasusion, of course, there have been many questions asked around the education sector. Do we have enough money for capitation, for school feeding program, for even administration of exams? And last week you were here, you expressed a lot of confidence that you're certain all these things are going to be sorted. Do you still feel the same, that yes, now they've gotten it right? Because I'm sure a lot of these figures are already out there in the public.
I think I can confirm to you, and I can confirm to the country, that education is not affected. And Badi, as the CS, has done a fantastic job. I don't remember an effective CS at the Treasury in recent times after Professor George Saitoti to Mbadi. I think Mbadi ranks very well, and he has done very well in public communication. He has done very well in demystifying the lies being politicized around, including around education. And he stated very clearly that nothing is going to be touched in the allocation for education. It remains but that's the truth. The funding of capitation is unaffected. The national exams shall continue to be funded, and the only arguments around national exams was the cost of the bringing down the cost. Like, do we need to print exams in London in a very expensive way? Can we print them locally? Don't we have other innovative ways of scaling down the cost in certain areas of education, like exams? But then funding of exams, there is a proper and adequate allocation. And if anything, education is receiving additional funding in 2 areas. That is in teaching. There will be employment of additional 24,000 teachers on top of the current 76 that Kenya Kwanza administration has onboarded for the last 2 years. So we shall have a record 100,000 new teachers within this administration on the role of the teaching service. That is
what about the issue of capitation? And as you continue.
Allow me, you will ask. Allow me to finish. And Higher Education Loans Board will receive additional 6 billion, from 35 billion to 41 billion. And remember, when this administration took over, the allocation to help was at 13 billion. So really, these resources that are being streamed additionally to education is making a lot of sense. So contrary to what some people are trying to talk and misinform, that there is reduction, in fact, education is a big
We've had a lot of complaints from head teachers, and this is not just during this budget making process, that the issue of capitation has been probably mishandled in as far as appropriations are concerned. That funding for one child, probably at secondary school, initially it was 22,000 shillings capitation, which has never been achieved. Schools are getting as little as 14,000. Do you feel that trend, if it continues, there will be a problem?
That is why I see the editorial in Nation that it's accurate learners' data key in allocating funds. There are a lot of logistical and administrative issues between schools and the ministry and the treasury. And what Parliament shall have done at the end of the day is to allocate money. And the rest of disbursement and actual allocation to all learners is administrative. So that calls for proper collaboration between the Ministry of Education and the National Treasury to ensure that there's timely disbursement and the students' data is up to date. And that is why the Ministry of Education has upgraded their information system and transited from National Education Management Information System to Kenya Education Management Information System. And we believe that data is going to automate the allocation, and no school will be disadvantaged because some learners are not captured. So I think as a country, we should only pile pressure on the Ministry of Education to do things right and the Treasury to disperse money on time. That will be the only challenge remaining, and that will be administrative. But as far as appropriation within the law, it has been appropriated.
All right.
Fred, I want to move just in summary, but to start, today Mwalimu is really talking like a unionist, saying everything is good, everything is well, but the facts are there to be seen. It's very simple. University education is losing 920 million in this budget, 4 or 5 million reduction for primary education, which includes a reduction in capitation, while secondary education is said to lose a net of 4 billion in allocation, including a combined 5 billion sharing cut in capitation for secondary and junior secondary. Now, Treasury budget to Parliament didn't have money for exam fee. We were here. There was an uproar. What happened? They took money for capitation. They brought in here 5.9 million, which is not enough. Exam management needs 11 billion, right? So there's a hole here already, there's a hole there. Number two, the people who did invigilation for last year have not been paid to date. That's another story. Okay, let's pause there. But for me, the biggest issue in this budget is the fact that the budget for executive office of the president has been increased to that by that 3 billion from what was sent from Treasury, right? During by the committee on the budget. A lot of that money has gone to defense, has gone to DCI, has gone to IG of police, have gone to DIG office. It has gone to a lot of security issues, which now begin raising questions. You must connect policy, and day-to-day life. And that's why we are here, some of us, because we analyze. You see a lot of money going to security apparatus. Part of that money, 150 million, this is very important, is going to procure Optimus 3.0 software to DCI, which is meant, and I'll put it this clearly, there's a software, a form of malicious software, it infiltrates devices, corrects user data, and transmits it to that party's without consent. A violation of the Data Protection Act. It will enable DCI to snoop on your phones, find out who is saying what, where. That already is in the budget, but the broad-based conspiracy, okay? Nobody's talking about it. These are something that should have raised a lot of alarm. Nobody said the people who are supposed to pass the budget, they are all quiet. This is a very serious threat. Now, you remember Gen Z, what happened? What the president did last year? He announced that the confidential vote from his own office, the office of the DP, office of head of public service, office of the applying cabinet secretary, to be abolished. It is back, close to 5 billion. No vote confidence means this. Just to tell our viewers, it's money you can spend without accounting for it. You just need to sign a certificate that the money went to the intended uses. That is a lot of money that can go to exam fee alone. Now, these are things nobody is saying. So what I'm saying is this: the money you see being dished out in economic empowerment, this is where the money is coming from. Because somebody has access to millions of shillings every week. That's what happens. You sign every week for some money. This is the money being dished out there. I want to connect this because this is now, in this budget, there's no single coin for pending bills. No single coin for pending bills. Now, like I have said, money for subsidy for fertilizer has been reduced, okay? Money for a coffee cherry fund has been reduced significantly. Actually, it's not there. All this money meant to caution agriculture and farmers and education and health. Remember, UHC, people who saved this country from COVID, they have been demonstrating in the streets, wanting 3.9 billion. Were it not for the intervention of some like-minded MPs who pushed for 2 billion, there's still a deficit. But we have a lot of money to splash around. What am I saying? Quickly, what Buddy has done, he has come and told us there's a finance bill, switching quickly to finance bill, and he is swearing by his gods that there are no new taxes. But what has happened? Do you know, Fred, sitting here, once the finance bill collapsed last year, it came back under the miscellaneous, where you go amend excise tax separately, you amend this other tax, income tax, in December, during the miscellaneous. What do they want to do? Come and say there is no taxes here. But I can tell you today, seated here, finally, within the next coming month, maybe this August, you are going to see the miscellaneous, and they are going to amend all this, because what this finance bill has done, Fred, don't hit directly, like last year. You hit here to hit that one, to hit here. So you propose something in this finance bill to amend that other act. Okay. To go all the way. So this is my summary of this. Is
that your parting shot? Because
and finally, look here. When Kibaki came, Fred, he never fought so hard trying to snoop on your KRA M-Pesa to find out what. He just said, kulipa ushuru ni kujitegemea. But do you know the difference between that and that? The trust. People trusted government with their money. The problem here is, do we trust? Do Kenyans feel happy to pay taxes? Because they don't know. And they don't know where the money is going to go.
Marangojiri Wambugu, parting shot, 60 seconds.
First, people have never trusted government with their money. Never happened. And I don't see it ever happening soon because, as I said last time, government is made of people and people don't trust people who are running their money. Nobody wants to give their money to somebody else to run it. And that's why we have to keep staying on point, following up. After this budget, we need to stay on top of the miscellaneous budget that's going to come, the supplementary budget. We need to follow it up. But I also want to point out to Kenyans that this is most probably the last technical budget you're going to have until the next election. In the budget 2026 is going to be a political budget. Budget 2027 is going to be a political budget. So this is most probably the last budget we're actually going to get that is going to break down financial capacity of government to do things. The next budget is going to be a popular budget. Most probably next year we're going to have a reduction, an actual reduction in taxes. We're going to see money going to the things we are worried about right now. So as we think about what's happening, we need to keep in mind, this is most probably the last technical budget we're having in this term.
Right.
Yes, we've discussed two key issues today, and I wish to say DIG Lagat does not have to step aside nor resign unless directly implicated by investigations that are ongoing. That is number one. Number two, our budget this year is critical in further delivery of the key pillars of government. We must see more support going to agriculture and tweaking deliveries in that key pillar of agriculture. And then number two, the universal health coverage, it must be actualized to the point that there will be less complaints and the delivery of healthcare system to all Kenyans should be seamless. The housing plan is on course, and of course the other accompanying pillars, the ICT sector and micro MSME support for small scale enterprises must also grow, and other areas, including education, must also be fully supported. So I believe the budget is very optimistic, and we have a cabinet secretary who understand what is being done and who can link it to the programs. And so the politics around the budget and around the finance bill, I don't think it will have legs this time. Neither will it have wings, but we'll have budget that is easy to implement.
No, Fred. No, only that seconds. One, this is already a political budget. It has cut development completely to go to recurrent, so that it can be used for these issues of economic empowerment. That's why the competition vote is back. It's already a political budget. Number two, very, very importantly, budget out of 4.2 is only 700 billion. Only. Finally, you can't. The borrowing domestically, Fred, is dangerous because you begin competing. The private businesses will be affected because banks will prefer to lend to government instead of lending to the people to spur business economics. Finally, broad-based conspiracy. Rest in peace, finance bill and the budget.
Dr. Peter Mbaye, Secretary Planning and Economic Affairs of the DCP. Mwalimu Wilson Sosion, who has served as SG of KNUT and also as a member of the National Assembly. And Ngojiri Wambogo, who has served as MP for Nyeri Town. Asanteni sana for your time at TV47. Of course, the biggest discussion today is around the budget. At around 2:30 p.m. today, CS for Treasury, John Badi, will be making his way into Parliament buildings, where he's expected to present his maiden expenditure estimates for the broad-based government's very first budget. And that, believe, is going to be the biggest discussion even after the following break. But of course, the headlines today still following up on the murder of Albert Ojwang. You're watching Morning Cafe. We'll have more after this.